Okay. Okay, we're recording. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here today. My name is Erika Hennebury. I am Strategic Programs Manager at Toronto Arts Council, and I manage the Animating Toronto Park Grants program. I'm here today to tell you a little bit about that program, and I also have some colleagues who will be joining me. I have Alexandra Lowen from Toronto Arts Foundation from the Animating Toronto Parks, the Arts in the Parks program. It's all confusing already. And I also have Hassanika Midawake from the same program. And then with me today also is Cindy Hashi from Park People, and Andrea Damiano from Parks, Forestry, and Recreation. So we're all going to share a little bit of information that hopefully will help you navigate your application. But certainly, if anybody needs additional support, just get in touch and let us know. We'd be happy to accommodate you however you want. I'll say today for accessibility supports, we have ASL interpreters. Thank you so much for being here. We also, if closed captioning would help you, you can enable that at the bottom of your screen. And if this format is not the best format for you to receive this information, live transcript, got it. Then just let us know if there's a better way that we can support you. Because reading through a ton of documents online is also not always the greatest for everybody. But hopefully this format will also be helpful. I also want to let you know that we're going to be doing, and I'll drop the link into the chat in a little bit. I just want to make sure more people arrive. We're going to be doing another workshop next week in collaboration with the Neighborhood Arts Network. It's called Community Collaboration and Partnerships, and it's really all about how to collaborate with community when you're working in park spaces and open spaces, other public spaces too. I think it's going to be a really amazing session. We have some guest artists and organizations who have had grants in this program are going to be joining us and just sharing the knowledge that they've gleaned from the years of doing this work together. I think it's going to be amazing. If you want to just go on to the Toronto Arts Council website on the Arts in the Parks landing page, the registration information is right there at the top, but I'll also drop that link here. And just one more sort of backup support for anybody who might find this useful. I'm going to be hosting a little kind of a Zoom, super informal Zoom drop-in on the last Friday before the deadline day, which is the Monday, December 6th. So Friday, December 3rd in the afternoon, from 1 to 3, I'm just going to be hanging out on Zoom, and anybody who wants to pop in and ask any last questions or discuss anything about your application before you submit it, I'll be there, and you can come and have a cup of tea with me. That would be lovely. Okay, so now I'm going to share my screen. So screen share. Yes. So present. Okay, there we go. So I'm showing an image right now of an image that was taken from the Dance Together Festival, one of the festivals that has been funded by this program, this wonderful festival that happens every year in Amos Waits Park, where they just host a ton of beautiful dance workshops that are open to the public to attend for all levels, anybody who wants to try dancing. And you can see they've developed this beautiful mural, and I'll describe the mural for anybody with low vision. It's a multicolored sort of pastel beautiful mural that covers the entire hardscaping of the Mimico Square, which is right on the lakeshore there. And inside the mural are these sort of carved out spaces for people to kind of dance in a safe, socially distanced way. So you can go to this and you can take a dance lesson and you can dance with your community. So it's this lovely festival. I wanted to show that photo at the beginning. And this is a photo of Jordan Gutierrez Massa leading a salsa fusion dance workshop. So my next slide. What is Animating Toronto Park? So this is just the basic information. Toronto Parks is a grants program that's managed by the Toronto Arts Council. And we offer grants of up to $25,000 for free arts programming in any discipline, any arts discipline, in designated parks that are part of this program. These are parks that are pre-approved with our partner, Toronto Parks, Forestry and Recreation. So these parks are all going to be located in Etobicoke, North York, Scarborough, East York, and York. No parks in the downtown core are part of this program. This program is really strategically investing in the inner suburbs of the city. So Animating Toronto Parks is a strategic program that's managed by Toronto Arts Council, as I said, and this program is managed in partnership with Toronto Arts Foundation's Arts in the Parks program, with the City of Toronto Parks, Forestry and Recreation, with our partner Black Creek Community Farm, and with Park People. And we also work with Rise Edutainment as well, which Hasnika and Alexandra will tell you a little bit more about. So the grants recipients, all the grants recipients as part of this program, so if you get a grant, as part of this program, you automatically get to participate in the Arts in the Parks program, which Alexandra will talk about. Okay, so here's my slide for Alexandra and Hasnika. Alexandra, do you want to start?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Erika. So as Erika mentioned, Arts in the Parks is an initiative that is managed by Toronto Arts Foundation, again, in partnership with Toronto Arts Council, Park People, Rise Edutainment, and City of Toronto. And participation in the program is a really key part of being a grant recipient for Animating Toronto Parks. What it's really there for is to be, I mean, first of all, you know, there are other organizations that can participate in Arts in the Parks, but we make sure that the vast majority of our resources are really to provide focused support for the grant recipients of this program. So this can be things like help with community outreach and creating local partnerships and connections. We also offer on-site support, such as wayfinding signage. So we have some lovely banners and tents that we take to many events over the course of the summer. As part of my job, I also coordinate the volunteer program for Arts in the Parks. So we have volunteers, we have staff. The marketing is also a large component of Arts in the Parks. So normally we send out a citywide brochure. It goes out to, I think, usually around 200,000 people. We also do things, public things like newspaper ads, bus ads, things like that. And in recent years, especially, we've really focused a lot more on social media and online promotion, since an online component has been a part of many projects. We are also, I think what's unique about this program too, and the way our team runs it, is we provide really tailored support to each artist and community that is involved. So we really are focused on providing, like, helping you with strategies to make a project successful. You know, we don't offer a one-size-fits-all approach. So, you know, depending on our resources, we can offer higher levels of support to artists, or lower levels if you feel we're comfortable doing things on your own. And working with us is a key part of the program. The biggest thing that we ask is that you maintain communication with us. That's really key, to just let us know what's going on with your project. And we're always here to talk to if you need any other kind of support, or even just, you know, a sounding board for different aspects of your project. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Hasnika, who's just going to talk briefly a little bit about outreach.
Thanks, Alex. I'm Hasnika. I'm the Program Outreach Coordinator at Toronto Arts Foundation. Alex mentioned mostly everything, so I don't have much to add. I do work with the wonderful Cindy Hashi from Park People. We work together all summer and we connect. We really work hard to connect artists to park friends groups that are really local to the community. Our goal is to really ensure that artists know the community that they're going into and what the community needs are, how they can greatly serve the folks in the community. Sometimes that might be bringing food. I mean, not in the most recent years because we've been in a pandemic, but it might be bringing incentives to the park, like coloring books or activities. It might be going in a couple times a week rather than having one long show, just because the community works better with that. We've been so inspired the past 2 years about the events that have gone into these communities. They've been really intentional and really community engaged for the most part. And it really adds a really great element to your programming when the community is involved in that planning. And so Cindy and I, we really work hard to make sure that planning is happening. And even though it can be difficult sometimes, we try to get that planning happening really in advance of your program. I know it's been a little tough in the pandemic, but hopefully with our 2 years behind us, this year will be a bit easier. In terms of our partnership with RISE, that's a partnership that allows local artists to be invited into these communities to have the opportunity to perform. And it's also added another really great element to programming in the park. And for the most part, these artists are really emerging. And some of the feedback we got last year was that this was the first time in the entire pandemic that they were given the opportunity to perform. And it's the first time they've actually ever performed for a live audience. So it's really impactful and it's really inspiring. I'll leave the rest for Cindy later on in the presentation, but if you have any questions, my email is at the end of the presentation, so let me know. Thank you.
Thanks, Asanika, and thanks, Alexandra. That was great. I'm going to keep on with the presentation and just telling you a little bit more about the grants program, and then we'll hear from Cindy and Andrea as well. So let me get back onto this here. Okay, so who can apply? Who is eligible to apply for this program? So this program is available to professional artists, arts organizations, nonprofit organizations, or artist collectives. So you can be any of these entities to apply to this program. And I want to just carve out a special note for nonprofit organizations. These are organizations that are non-arts based. For the most part, Toronto Arts Council grants are only available to professional artists and arts organizations, but for this program, we wanted to make a special eligibility for nonprofit organizations because we recognize the way that they are deeply rooted in community and the way that they work with community. So if you are a nonprofit, non-arts-based organization, you can apply to do a project that is a collaborative project between professional artists and community members. So the payment of professional artist fees is a really important part of that. And if any community groups or nonprofit organizations want some sort of extra support navigating the arts granting system, just get in touch with me. I would be happy to just help you out a bit and maybe give you some tips or anything like that. That's helpful. And also just sometimes people wonder, what do you mean when you say professional artist? And so Toronto Arts Council has developed our sort of definition of what we mean by professional artist. It is very broad and it really is up to you to self-identify. We don't sort of vet people and we don't sort of tell people they are or are not artists. If you are a professional artist, we will absolutely accept a grant from you. So this is somebody that we would define as somebody who would has developed their skills through either training or practice, somebody who is recognized by other artists, by their peers working in that same artistic field, somebody who practices their art on a regular basis, and somebody who seeks payment for their work. You don't have to have received payment, but that you hope to have payment at some point. It's totally fine. And somebody who has a history of public presentation or exhibition. So what this program offers to you is grants of up to $25,000. It also offers in-kind support, as we said, for as part of the Arts in the Parks program, plus this incredible support with the community collaboration, which is a really essential piece of this program. It is the very core of this program, that collaboration with the community and that partnership building. So you'll get support from Park People and Rise Edutainment, as well as the Arts in the Parks teams. There's a lot of support for this and a lot of focus on this area. So this is a really important part of your grant application. That outreach section of your grant application is going to be assessed by the grant review panel. So pay special attention to it. So the program also offers support with navigating the city permitting sort of process, and the Parks, Forestry, and Recreation does waive the permit fee for those grant recipients as part of this program. So you don't have to budget for the event permit fee, though there may be other permits that may be required for whatever it is you want to do. These permits, Andrea will talk a little bit about, but they may be things like noise exemptions or building permits. So those are additional permits that you do have to budget for. You also will have to budget for things like bathrooms because some parks have them and some parks don't. We'll talk about that later too. And another thing that we do provide as part of this program is general liability insurance. So you will be covered under the liability insurance. You don't have to budget for that. So how do you apply for this program? Well, the first thing to do is the most important piece, and that is read the grant guidelines and sort of figure out whether you're eligible or not. That's the first piece. And then the second piece is just deciding whether or not you think this program is a good fit for the project that you have in mind, or really figuring out what this program is looking for so that you can build a project that is a good fit. So another thing that you can do that's really helpful is just read through all of the parks descriptions. We have a document on that TAC Arts and Animating Toronto Parks landing page that describes every single park and identifies community groups that you could reach out to collaborate with as part of your application. So one thing you might want to figure out first, especially if you're new to this program, is how you want to apply. Because if you don't yet have a TAC Smart Simple account, which is our online grant application portal, there are a few options when you go to first sign up for that account. You have to decide whether or not you want to apply as an individual artist or as a collective or organization. If you have an organization, that's pretty straightforward. You just apply as an organization. Sometimes people have a bit of a hard time deciding, I am working with some friends, I'm working with some other collaborators, should I form a collective with them or should I apply as myself? And that's a decision you'll have to make. Some things that might help you consider. Some things to consider that may help you decide. Well, I'll say that as an individual artist, you yourself would be paid the grant money. So you would have to receive that money in your name into your bank account, and you would be responsible to, obviously to pay everybody and keep track of the accounting and all that kind of stuff. But you will also get a T4A in that grant amount. So there are some tax implications for you to think about. And then on the other hand, if you are thinking about forming a collective with some colleagues, some collaborators, you could totally do that. The thing that you would need to do in that case is you would have to, if you do get the grant, if you're successful and you get the grant, you would have to go to a bank and create a bank account in the exact name of that collective. So you can't apply as a collective and then say, oh, actually, can you just pay it to me as an individual, or can you pay this other collective instead? That's not possible. What you will have to do is form a bank account. So just some things to think about. So the next tip would be to read the application, the grant application itself really carefully, and just pick through it and see what's there. Like what are they asking me to talk about? And you'll see too, in all of the different fields, there'll be a word count that's there. And so, for instance, the project overview, it'll have a word count. It'll be like, is it 500 words, 750, 1,000 words? Use that word count as a guide to figure out how much you need to say. So if you've only written a couple of sentences, you haven't said enough. If you've filled the entire field and you really haven't quite gotten around to describing your project yet, you have said too much. So just use that word count as a guide. The other thing it would be useful to do, right at the beginning, is to just collect as much of the materials as you can so that later on you can just focus on grant writing. So get those bios and your CVs from your collaborators, get that support material, get it all set up and edited, whatever you need to do, and just upload it. It really is something that is very stressful to do closer and closer to the deadline. So it's just kind of, it's like low-hanging fruit. Just get it done at the beginning. That way you can just turn your attention to the actual substance of your project application. And I'd say too, for first-time applicants, for either first-time applicants to TAC or first-time applicants to this program, if you can, like, talk to me, I can try and help, give you as much of a sense as possible of what to expect, just so you feel like you really have a strong understanding of the application, of the program, and all that kind of stuff. I think it would just be helpful if you want to do that. I'm certainly happy to meet with you, so we can have a Zoom, we can talk on the phone, whatever works best for you. And if you need any kind of accessibility support, I'd be happy to set that up for you as well. So get in touch. And then the last piece is just submit. I know this sounds ridiculous, but yeah, I actually have to remember to submit everything. The nice thing about the way the application is built is as you click through the various different sections, if you go to the end of it and you try to submit and you haven't done a section, it will send you back to complete that section before you're allowed to click submit at the end. So yeah, just submit it before the deadline. And if something goes wrong, if it's 11:58 and your video hasn't uploaded, don't freak out. It'll be okay. Just send me an email in the morning and we'll carve out some support for you just to make sure that all goes through. So no stress. It's okay. I mean, the deadline is firm, and you definitely can't submit stuff past the deadline or submit new applications, certainly. But if you do run into issues, don't stress out about it at all. What kinds of activities are eligible? So this would be free public arts programming in those selected parks. As I mentioned, all the parks are listed in the guidelines and described in the parks description document. And public arts programming we would define in a really open way. It could be dance, music, visual arts. It could be community engaged arts or relational projects, participatory projects. Visual, like media arts, really any art form. It's just that it has to be free and open to the public, and professional artist fees have to be paid as part of this program. So what does this project not support? There's a huge long list of things it doesn't support in the grant guidelines. So if you're not sure, you can go check out that list. But permanent installations, it's just something we don't have the capacity to do as part of this program. Permanent installations require a whole maintenance and approval and removal, and it just requires a lot of additional navigation and contracting with the city, and we don't have the capacity for that. So this is only temporary work. So it can be time-based work, it could be temporary installation, that's fine, though leaving stuff up in a park overnight is not a great idea because the chances of it being subject to vandalism or set on fire, as Andrea will probably tell you, it's not really a great idea to be leaving stuff in that park overnight. So we can talk about that later. So commercial or for-profit events that require any kind of ticket collection or any kind of donation collection, any kind of ticket charge, those are not going to be eligible for this program. So you cannot collect donations as part of this program, just to be really clear. Capital costs related to equipment purchase are not eligible. If you have equipment that you need to use as part of this project, you can rent it, or you could even rent it from yourself if you own it. That's fine if you want to include rental costs in the budget. That's absolutely fine. You just can't say, I'm going to buy myself a brand new laptop. That's not gonna fly. So also any activities taking place outside the city of Toronto are not eligible. Also, ongoing operational costs not related to the project, like your organization's office rental or your full-time staff salaries, things like that. Obviously, labor costs associated with the project, no problem, but it's definitely not an operating grant. Okay, how many TAC grants can I have? This one gets a little bit tricky, so I wanted to carve it out a little bit just so you understand it. So TAC, for the most part, most of our programs, almost all of our programs, fall into one of two categories. We have arts discipline grants, Those are project grants and operating grants in all of the various arts disciplines, so theater, dance, music, visual arts, etc. Then we have the newer category of grants, which is called strategic programs, of which Animating Toronto Parks is one. Also, Artists in the Library, the Art Reach program, Animating Toronto Streets, Open Door, these are all considered strategic programs. I know that some of you had received an Open Door grant because the guidelines were a little bit different for just this past application year. And so there was an eligibility kind of exception. But if you're not sure about that, just talk to me about it. But if you do have an Open Door grant from this past deadline, you can still apply. But that won't be the case going forward. Okay, so yes, you can have one grant per calendar year. If you've had a strategic programs grant before, it just needs to be done. The project needs to be done, the previous project, and you need to have submitted the final report in order to be eligible to apply. So if you currently have, a library grant, a historic sites grant, last year's Arts in the Parks grant, you haven't filled out your final report yet, just please get it to me before December 6th. I'll go through them all on December 6th or 7th just to make sure everything's cool, but just get them to me so that you can be eligible to, be adjudicated as part of this process. If you have any questions about that or concerns, just let me know. We can talk about it. How will my application be assessed? How do you choose? I think that's a question that we get a lot. I think I want to just say how important the peer review process is to us. The integrity of that process is like really, really important to Toronto Arts Council. And so the funding, all the TAC programs, the funding is awarded on a competitive basis, and it is according to the availability. So there'll be, a maximum grant amount set out that we will have, and the projects will be selected by a multidisciplinary grant review panel, and that will be composed of practicing artists in the City of Toronto. So we'll also be receiving really valuable input from our program partners at Arts in the Parks, Parks, Forestry and Recreation, and Park People that will assist the grant review panel in making that final decision. And our partners will also participate in the process of matching all of the successful grant applicants to the various different parks. And that's a process I want to just tell you a little bit about because it can be a little bit confusing or maybe not super transparent. But we have like a pretty large number of parks in this program, and we have a limited amount of resources. And the goal is really to program as many parks as we possibly can. And every year, there's always a ton of competition for like a handful of parks. It's not always the same parks. Sometimes we get a surprise competition. Everybody wants this one certain park for some reason every year. And there can be a lot of competition. And so what we have to do, maybe in that case too, if there are a lot of very, very strong applications, very highly scored applications for one particular park, we might just put a couple in that one park and then move some of the other applications or the other projects to different parks across the city. So that may happen. You may get a park, if you're successful in getting a grant, you may get a park that you didn't necessarily pick as your top choice. It's not the end of the world, and it's also we're not going to force you to work in a park that doesn't make sense for you. So if that does happen, just talk to us and we can work with you to try and find a good fit. But we really are keeping in mind the, I think the appropriateness of each of the projects to the particular park location, but also to the community. We're trying to be very sensitive to the community that surrounds that park and what they've expressed their needs are, and like what kind of projects work best. So back to the assessment process. The grants are adjudicated. So all of 5 of the grant panelists will be reading every single application. We will discuss every single application in the adjudication meeting. And there will be 5 points of 5 criteria that we're going to be using to just try and sort of look at each of these applications and compare them to each other. The first is artistic merit. The second is what is the demonstrated capacity of the applicant to carry out the project as they've outlined it? And then the financial viability of the project. You know, have artist fees been paid? What is the budget? Is it really well expressed? Is it really clear? The extent to which the proposed project will engage and include local communities is a really important one. And the quality of the experience or the quality of the activity that's being proposed to the local community. So all of those are sort of ways that we look at the applications. And I want to say too, though, that projects that are coming from local artists, so you know, if you're living in a community and you want to program in your local park, those applications will be prioritized in this program, because it's really important that we invest in local communities and making sure that we're supporting artists that are from there, that we're not just, you know, funding projects that are from somewhere else to kind of come in to a community, although that can work as well.
Erika,
we just want to make sure, yes.
Sorry to interrupt. Can you
That's
just
okay.
move forward one slide so that people can visually see the 5-point system that you're talking about?
Oh, is it cut off at the bottom there?
No, it's I think it's the next slide after how many TAC grants can I have?
I'm looking at it. Can you not see it?
No,
Maybe.
it's stuck on how many TAC grants can I have?
Oh,
That's
I
the
think
slide we're seeing.
I think I'm having, does this change now? I think I'm having technical issues because my little toolbar thing has kind of gone dead. Pause share. I'm going to pause share and see if that works. New share. Let me try this. I don't know if this is Zoom or if this is my computer, but I think I'm having some technical issues here. Yeah, it's not allowing me to advance.
May I suggest maybe stopping the share altogether and then trying it again?
Yeah, I'm trying to,
Sorry to
but it's not allowing me to. The navigation bar has kind of shut down on me, and it's not.
So you can't stop sharing your screen?
I can't stop sharing my screen.
Oh.
I also can't start sharing my screen. I can't do anything. I'm gonna try. Nope, I don't think that's gonna work. I'm clicking stop share, but it's not. Oh, I think
there we
that
go.
worked. Yeah, okay. Okay, I'm just gonna try one more time. Nope, I'm not, because it's completely shut down now. Okay, we're having technical issues, my friends.
Do you want me to try sharing mine, Erika?
Yeah, if you could, that'd be great. If it doesn't work, you know, we'll just go without slides. It's no big deal. I can send them to everybody after. Oh, beautiful. Is it working? Oh no, that's me. Is it working? Yes, it is. Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
If you could just go back up a few slides there. The one before access plan.
Oh, this is the one before access plan.
The one I'm seeing is what happens if I get a grant. I think we're having the same issue, maybe.
I can see on my screen, it's how will my application be assessed on my screen. Oh. This is the interpreter speaking.
Okay.
Weird. Okay, so I think it's me. I think it's my computer. Okay, great. I'm gonna just press forward. Okay, so you can see on Alexandra's screen, hopefully, those assessment criteria. And I will send everybody a PDF of the slideshow after if you wanted to just click through it again. Okay, so I'll go on to the access plan section. I just wanted to highlight this because it is new. It's something that TAC has just added to grant applications, and it was a suggestion by Ayoka Junaid, which I thought was just so brilliant. Really appreciated that suggestion to include that as something that should be in all the grants. It's something that we're working on. So this would be a place for you to describe what accessibility supports you're going to put in place for participants and audience members. It's not for artists. That's a different thing. This is for attendees Okay, and then there's another section of the grant that is TAC Accessibility Grants. You can move to that slide as well. The accessibility grants are for deaf artists, artists with disabilities who are working on your project. So this is to support accessibility costs for those artists. And again, we're really open to what those kind of costs might look like. So it's really free. You need to define it. Some costs will not be eligible, but if you can make an argument, we'll definitely be open to it. But yeah, things like audio description, ASL interpretation, like these kinds of costs. Transportation, personal support worker, whatever the things are that your artist or you yourself need to show up to make that work. That's where you can apply for additional funding. So this is funding above and beyond that maximum $25,000. So this is an additional $5,000. So you could get a grant for $25,000 to do your project, and then $5,000 more for accessibility costs. Okay, so the next thing I want to tell you about is application accessibility support. And this is a program offered by TAC. This is for artists. So if you're applying for a grant and you need to hire somebody to support you in doing that, you can access up to $500 per calendar year for costs like that. And this can also be for things like final reports. So if you need that, just let me know, and I will negotiate, or I will sort of help your support worker. I will help them access those funds. So they'll be applying to us directly, and we'll grant them the funds directly. So that's how that can work. And then the next slide we have is what happens if I get a grant. So if you do get the grant, you'll be notified in February. We'll have an Animating Toronto Parks orientation session in March that you can come to just to find out how to get started and all the different things you sort of have to do. And then to accept your grant, you need to sign into Smart Simple, and you'll see there'll be a bunch of action items for you to do there. And you just have to, sign the letter of agreement with TAC, agreeing that you're going to do the project and that you accept the money. That's really important to do that. There's also a declaration of anti-harassment and discrimination that you have to sign, which is just basic city policy, Schedule C. The applicant, you have to put in your bank account information so that we can transfer the funds to you. You'll also need to upload a permit notice from Andrea for Parks, Forestry, and Recreation that Andrea will talk a little bit about in a moment. But this is just indicating that you have gone through the process of applying for that permit, and it's in process. That booking has been made for you. This is not your actual permit itself. You'll get that way closer to the day of the event. This is just a notice that acknowledges your application, and that's kind of a placeholder for the permit, and it allows us to release the funding to you. Yes, so you'll also need to submit an emergency action plan. And the reason it's really useful to do this is because this goes out to, EMS, fire, police in the local community to let them know that something's happening in that park so that they won't come and ask you what you're doing there. Also, if anything happens and you need support, they'll be able to dispatch to support you much more quickly because they'll know what's going on. So it's just a way of logging your information in the system and making sure that everybody, is going to be aware of it. So I talked about bathrooms a tiny bit earlier as well. Again, I just want to repeat, some parks have bathrooms, some parks don't. You would need to provide bathrooms to have people coming into the park. Humans can't really function without having access to bathrooms. It's a really important part of hospitality. The reason the grant budgets are so big, like $25,000, for TAC is a very huge grant. compared to some of our other programs. So the reason the grant amount is as big as it is because we understand how expensive it is to do stuff in parks. And a lot of the expenses are things like logistics, and part of logistics is bathrooms and water and food and all this kind of stuff. So you're gonna need to pay for all that. It's in the budget, put it in the budget. And the other thing you'll need to just make sure you're doing is visually acknowledging both TAC and Arts in the Parks, and we'll give you those logos. So the next slide, please. I guess this is just the do you have any questions slide. So I'm gonna park that for a moment and we'll put that up at the end. And maybe if you could unshare. And what I would like to do, thank you so much, Alexandra, is invite Cindy to come on and just talk to us about this beautiful, wonderful organization called Park People. That is our collaborator, our community partner on this program.
Thank you, Erika.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Cindy. I work at Park People. I'm the project manager of the Toronto Networks. Park People supports and mobilizes community park groups, community organizations, nonprofits, park professionals, and funders who activate the power of parks. Through Canada-wide and city-specific programs, events, funding, resources, research, and professional services, we help realize the power of parks to build strong communities, healthy environments, and resilient cities. Park People collaborates on Arts in the Park because of the role these events play in creating vibrant parks that reflect their communities. Park People works with community park groups to support artists in understanding the local content and share the events with the community. And so we connect with Arts in the Park to connect with community park groups, with the artists, Arts in the Park staff, and support community park groups in these relationships. So the community park groups could share content and background of community and physical site where events will take place through stakeholder meetings or communication with artists, Toronto Arts Foundation, and Park People. We also liaise with stakeholders as to require a successful event. The community can also do the outreach support to help promote events in the community. They also can do other things like Hennebury had mentioned earlier, like sharing leading walks before events or just working with the artists. So there are opportunities for the community park group to speak during performances about the community and facilitate a conversation, but that would be discussed during the stakeholder meeting. Yeah, thank you. If you have any questions, we can follow up after.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Cindy. That was great. Okay, cool. Andrea, would you like to pop on and talk to us a little bit from your perspective at Parks, Forestry, and Recreation about permitting and those kind of logistics?
The fun side of things. Hi, everybody. I'm Andrea, and I work in client services with Parks, Forestry, and Recreation for the City of Toronto. Part of my role with the city is to work with this amazing group on animating Toronto parks. And I've been very lucky to be part of that program since it started. So yeah, I'm excited about that and I'm excited to go into another year of it. So I unfortunately had to join with my cell phone, so I can't share my screen. I did have some slides. I sent them over to Alexandra. Oh, Alexandra, you're the best. Thank you. And I will try to make it brief and then leave time for questions as well. So my role is to be your city contact and to move you through sort of the permit process, as well as legislations, bylaws, policies, procedures, all of the red tape, I guess it likes to be referred to get you to that final permit and get you into the park. And so I will accept your application. I'll communicate with the park supervisor and just get you sort of approval, and then your requirements, and then in the end, final permit. Okay, and so the basic process, if we can go to the next slide. So we start with the submission of a special event application. We ask that you submit that along with a site map, and that's going to show the park supervisor where in the park you want to set up, and then it's going to provide them with all of the details of your event so that they know what's being asked and they can provide approval or feedback based on that request and that application. Once your application is received by our office, I've looked it over, sent it over to the park supervisor, and they've provided approval. You're issued what we call a letter of conditions, also referred to as your permit notice, like Erika mentioned. And that is basically what shows the Toronto Arts Council and Foundation that you've submitted your documentation to the city, you have approval from the park supervisor, and now you have, your conditional approval to move forward with your event. So as long as you can read the letter, I can't emphasize enough, please read your letter of conditions in detail. That is what's going to tell you everything that you need to do in order to have your final permit. So once you read it and you say, like, yes, I can provide these 5 requirements and I can adhere to the rest of the policy information that's listed at the end of the letter, then you know that you're going to be good to go as of your start date. So that, okay, yeah, next slide. Your application needs to have as much detail as possible. I am an advocate for, like, tell us everything you want to do up front, even if it's a maybe, and let's get it approved. Let's get it approved. Let's get you requirements that go along with all of those things that you want to do. And then if you want to pull back later on, we can very easily eliminate things. It's a lot more difficult to add new things close to the event date. So we're looking for you to confirm your dates and your times, including rain dates, rehearsal dates, any dates that you're going to need time in the park. We want to make sure we have those secured so you don't show up with another event, something else taking place. So dates and times are really important off the, as early as possible, because we want to get those secured for you before we end up with conflicts. Like I said, we're looking for a site map that shows where you're going to be. We want to know the activities. We're looking to find out if you're having installations, whether those installations will be staked or pegged into the ground, sound amplification, food and drink, live music. Basically, all aspects of the event is what we're looking to have outlined in this application form. And you can also submit an attachment for additional details, a schedule if you're having ongoing dates. You can send that along with the application form. Okay, and then so next slide, please. When you're looking to host in a park, basically every time when you add, components to an event, a lot of times they come with an associated requirement. So this just gives a, sort of an outline of some of the things that you may want to do in the park, and then some of the timelines that are attached to those requirements. And this is also why it's really important to read your letter of conditions very early on, because some of the requirements have an 8-week timeline, and those are timelines that are put in place not by Parks, Forestry and Recreation, but by other divisions like municipal licensing and standards or public health. So it's really important that the paperwork that is needed for those is submitted with at least, allowing for the timeline that they require. So that just kind of, this gives an overview. Staking something into the ground requires you to get locates through Ontario One Call. That process can be timely, so we want to make sure that it happens in time, because in the end, we don't want you to have to pull an event component because the requirement wasn't able to be achieved on time. And these requirements that you're seeing here, these are all items that will be listed in your letter of conditions with the information of how to go about and achieve them. And then that's just my contact information. There's also an event planning guide there link. And then now, of course, we have the COVID-19 guidance for indoor and outdoor events and gatherings, which is continually updated. And, you know, if you have questions about that, we can definitely go over it. And like, once you're, you know, in this initiative, we at the city, we offer a more hands-on approach to moving through the permit process. So I'm happy to set up meetings, WebEx, Zoom, or phone calls to go over the nitty-gritty of the requirements, because it can feel somewhat overwhelming, especially the first time if you're receiving one of these letters and it's 4 pages long, and it feels like a lot. So talking it through, I find, is really, really helpful, as opposed to just like going back and forth on email. And the COVID guidelines, I try to say to people, it's now what we're dealing with in our day-to-day lives. So it looks like a lot of information, a lot of language, and a lot of requirements, but kind of when you get into the details of it, you realize that it is sort of things that we are used to now. And so it's just kind of getting that into a plan on paper. So talking that through can be helpful as well. So please reach out anytime. And if you have questions about park suitability, for certain things that you're interested in doing, please feel free to reach out ahead of the grant deadline, because suitability of the location that you are proposing and the event that you're proposing for a certain location is really important. Especially on my end, when I'm looking at those proposals, that should be part of the consideration. We're not looking to have like a massive music concert event in a small park that is close to residential with like a lot of people's backyards right up against it. So looking at whether an event is appropriate for a location is also important. So feel free to reach out.
Thank you, Andrea.
No problem.
All right. Okay. So that kind of brings us to the end of the